don't have to have the same experience for your children that you had. You don't have to make it hard on them. That struggle that you had with your father is not requirement for working at the place now as a child. And I have 4 daughters and 4 boys, and it really struck home. And I'm learning now that my kids aren't me, and I'm learning how to bring them in without spoiling them or making them walk through glass.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I sucked as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I am Bradley Hartman, and on this podcast, we deliver ideas and insights from leaders across the construction industry every single week to help you lead more effectively. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Capital One Trade Credit. If you're looking for a customized platform and a team to help you make it significantly easier to reduce risk and make it easier to sell to your best customers, well, Capital One Trade Credit is built for you. So where should you find it? Well, you can just Google it. It's called Capital One Trade Credit. Now, I absolutely love hosting this podcast. I get to meet new people. I get to learn from them. And the generosity and thoughtfulness of all our guests for the past 300 darn near episodes has absolutely made my life more richer. And every single episode, for me personally, has been a gift where people have given their time and attention. However, some episodes you have just a little bit more fun, or you learn just a little bit more. They're just a little bit different. And this is one of those episodes. You, my friend, are in for a treat. We're going to talk business. We're going to talk family. We talk craftsmanship. We talk technology. We talk leadership. Hell, this is a leadership pod. Look at us. We actually talked about leadership. Anyway, so who is this guest? Who is this person that I would just describe kind of like my grandfather? My grandfather, and then I would use his words to describe this individual. He's just a character. He's just a character. And you can tell he's having fun, but he is just unique. You like pulled him right out of some friend of a friend of Jeffrey Lebowski or something. Like, he's that kind of guy. He's just a character. So who is this guy? His name is Armen Alajian. So I know what you're thinking. Who the hell is that? Relax. I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to leave you hanging. Well, here might be the best way for me to explain it to you. This is what he has on LinkedIn. Armen Alajian. Hashtag makers gonna make. You also need to sell it. I like doing both. Los Angeles County, California, United States. Experience, 1985, 1986. 1 year. McDonald's, quarter pounder maker. Meanwhile, from February of 1970 to present day, 52 years and 9 months, his title has been Empresario, one who gathers others together for creating art, the art of making a ruckus, the art of inventing the future, the art of important work, something that apparently he stole from Seth Godin. This gives you an idea about what we're getting into here with Armen. He talks fast, he's funny, and good for both you and me and all future listeners of this episode. He's damn smart. So Armen is the owner of Arto, A-R-T-O, tagline, rustic elegance, handcrafted in Los Angeles since 1966. They make their ceramic and concrete products the traditional way with skilled human hands, local materials. They're all vertically integrated, something we talk about, and hard work and craftsmanship. I was lucky enough to be in LA, probably 3 or 4 months ago, and got a quick tour and was just blown away. And you'll hear us kind of talk about this, about kind of the old world craftsmanship over here, and then got some new technology that blew me away as well, and how they're really bringing some unique products to what can be a very commoditized world, which is something you could probably relate to. Well, suitable to a podcast featuring Armen Alajian. This introduction has been kind of all over the place. However, let me tell you this. You're going to enjoy this. You're going to learn from it. We got business. We got personal. It's going to make you laugh. It's going to make you cry. Actually, probably won't cry, but it'll make you think. And you're going to enjoy it. You're going to get a lot out of it. I certainly did. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Armen Alajian, owner of Arto in Los Angeles County. As always, thank you for listening. Armen, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Brad, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's pronounced Brad. Actually, all the letters in there,
Hartman, or
all of them you pronounce.
Hartman?
That is correct.
Okay.
2 N's. The second one's silent. I deliberately didn't say your last name for a reason. In my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm like, I don't know if you ever saw the George Costanza episodes where he always tries to pronounce and then spell people's last names that are a little bit more challenging. Try to do the same thing. How do you pronounce your last name?
Good question. I don't really know either. My dad's last name before he changed it was Alajian. It's way easier than now that even though it's shorter, it's an on ramp, right? You go Alajian, and there's an off ramp for it. My name now is Alajian. My wife calls me Alajian.
All right. Well, if that's what your wife calls you, it's probably what I will choose, but I'm going to go with Armen for this conversation.
Way easier.
Way easier. Let's talk about your father and his story, because reading kind of the miniature version of his bio was kind of a little story about historical geopolitics, and wherever he ended up, it seemed like in the next 12 or 24 months, there was going to be some action there and he'd be moving on. So maybe give us the little tour of how your father, where he started from in Armenia and how he got here. Give us that story.
Okay, so my dad, Arto Alajian, is the immigrant son of Krikor Alajian, who was an orphan in Armenia. And he ended up in Syria, so going way back to the beginning of the world. And he ended up being adopted by a family in Alexandria, Egypt, when it was a place he wanted to live, not any longer. But how do I know? Back then it changed. I don't know about the current thing. And he ended up in Alexandria, Egypt. He ended up in Egypt. It was middle class, wealthy, poor. My dad ended up in a shoe factory, which was his dad's, my grandfather, the orphan. And my father learned how to do design on leather. His background is that my grandfather imported leather from Milan, Italy, and turned them into shoes, men and women's shoes. And my dad's background in industrial design. Ended up, that place fell apart when the king got deposed, and it became a different world over there. They lost their business. He ended up going to Beirut, Lebanon, when he was in his early 20s. And you might have to edit this out. He was a young man in the Paris of the Mediterranean. No more storytelling there, but I have more to tell, but not recorded. And he loved it. Great time as a young person. That place fell apart. Came to New York, hated it. Went to Texas, Houston. No offense to people from Houston, they didn't care for it. Ended up in Venice, California. Loved it. Imagine California with a tenth of the people living there. You know, he just fell in love with the place. He made it his home, and we've been in LA Metro since I think legally we started in 1966. There's a story there, but illegally probably late 50s, early 60s. He's making tile and brick, but there's more before that even too. But we'll stop with bricks.
Got it.
And thin brick at that. We say brick, but it's thin brick from the beginning.
Yes, right. And that'll segue into what you guys are doing today with the vertical integration stuff that I want to get to. So place me, you're 12, Armen. Where are you? You're in Venice, you're in LA. What do you think you are going to be when let's put you when you're 40? What do you think you're going to be doing, and where do you think you'll be?
Well, first, I'm glad you think I'm 40. That's spectacular. I know I've aged slowly, but man, I think I'm younger than you, aren't I, at 40?
You are, yes.
Number two, this is a therapy session. My parents were divorced when I was 10 years old.
Okay.
And so at 12, my father and I were not friends. They called it estranged. So at 12 and 13, probably with my psychosis, I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be a builder. I wanted to build community. I wanted to be around that, probably because of my 10-year-old kid brain saying, well, I lost this, I'll make my own.
How far did you take that? In high school, I know you went to Long Beach State, 49ers. What did you study there? And did you envision yourself taking over for your father's business, running the family business in the future?
Not till I was about 18 and a half,
Okay.
Maybe 19. My dad and I, we saw each other very rarely. We were, like I said, having problems. And I was going to school, did not graduate, go 49ers. I know you like to do that mascot thing. I had to look it up myself.
I do. Speaking of psychosis, yes.
I was a Viking in high school at St. Bernard's. Did you know that? Did you look it up in my bio? No, you did not.
My research staff stopped right before high school. So no, I'm glad you filled me in on that. Thank you. The Vikings.
Okay. My dad, when I met my dad again, hanging out, trying to be his son and him be my dad, he was manufacturing and installing what he manufactured. And I was going to school, and I would go, and I was in Long Beach, and I was driving up to the LA area to work when I wasn't at school. And I quit school, started working full time with my dad. And for about 5 years, maybe 6, can't do math, I got fired about 10 times and quit about 10 times
Sure.
in that process of learning about each other.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be proud about this, because it wasn't about your lazy son, or I wish I was never your father. It was all about how to run the business. We were arguing about how to do the best business. That was really cool, but we got to the part where we butted heads. And when we made peace, my father and I, when I was 25 or 26, we blew up. He let me do what I was good at, which was bullshit and storytelling, and which I learned from him. And I went and knocked on $1 million. I went from being a contractor with manufacturing to being a manufacturer that sold B2B. And we just went from, a crew of four installers to a team of 8 making, and then 8 and 12. We stayed for a long time. And then from there, we blew up in 2000, then blew up again in 2008. Okay. 2008 was probably when we broke out nationally.
So Armen, now that you have other relatives, you have children in the business, are there certain lessons of leadership of either what to do or what not to do now that, all of a sudden the shoe's on the other foot and you're in a leadership role, you have this next generation in? What are the things that come to mind either to do or not to do that you learned from working with your father?
Really good clarity on this one. During the pandemic, I got interviewed by Thara Watt magazine, and I told her the same story about getting fired 5 times and quit 5 times. I may have told her it was 20 times back then for embellishment storytelling. And after she pressed the button for stop, she said, "Hey, Armen, you don't have to have the same experience for your children that you had. You don't have to make it hard on them like your dad did for you." Well, it's not my dad, it was me and him. That struggle that you had with your father is not requirement for working at the place now as a child. And I have 4 daughters and 4 boys. And it really struck home. And I'm learning now that my kids aren't me. And I'm learning how to bring them in without spoiling them or making them walk through glass. And I'm still learning that process.
Well, I think just that awareness, maybe you don't have all the answers, but I think the way you describe those two polar ends of that, which is don't want to spoil them and make it easy because we know what happens there, but also having a walkthrough or chew glass isn't probably the right thing either. And my wife and I remind each other often, mainly she helps remind me, which is I'm not raising myself. I'm raising another 15-year-old and 11-year-old, and they're their own people and they think differently and they got different experiences. But I think I'm not doing a great job of internalizing that awareness, but I feel like I'm getting there.
It sounds stupid. Knowing that you suck is the beginning of wisdom. And knowing, Brad, that you suck is the beginning of your wisdom.
Now I'm lying down.
That's storytelling. That's the beginning of learning, yes. You and I have an affinity for a book I can't even read, But the guy with the anti-library, this office is empty, but I have a basement full of books that, you don't pick up a book if you know everything. The wisdom comes from knowing you're a fool.
Yeah, Nassim Taleb is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tell me, where does it fit in to your story, your journey about working, developing the family business? The pandemic hits, you guys are in, we'll just say in general, LA, and you say, where I should be? South Dakota. I'm like, didn't see that coming when we were exchanging messages through Instagram, as it were. And then you're like, actually, I'm not there because I visited and saw my man Alex, who I consider a friend and kind of got a tour, which was fantastic. And I said, where's Armen? He's like, Armen? Oh, he's in South Dakota. I'm like, oh, right, because that makes sense. How did that happen?
Okay, you can edit everything out. 2020, right? I have 2 kids that are 18, graduate from high school. We bought an RV in February. And we were going to drive the RV up to Alaska, park it, and fly kids up throughout the summer to meet us in Alaska. Well, I couldn't cross the border.
Right.
I'm a Canadian with my RV, and I wasn't going to spend the $18,000 to move it on a boat to Alaska.
Good move.
So we toured the Northwest. Met a friend from LA that grew up in South Dakota, and he was our tour guide our first time in 2020. It was the most idyllic day we ever had. We went from being hikers to being tourists to just enjoying the outdoors, and we got hooked. And like the song goes from Creedence Clearwater, it's stuck in Spearfish, South Dakota. It's Lodi to you, but yeah, Spearfish, South Dakota.
And any CCR reference, I'll be fine with. We're good. I'll pick you up there. I'll meet you halfway. So how does being there and having that be home, how does that change your management and leadership style?
I realized that, like I said earlier, I think been blessed with a good team. My brand of being the underdog. Everyone comes to work that's in management that says, that poor sap Armen, he needs my help. I have to come to work. Like if I ask my guys, they feel like they come to work and make a difference. That sounds good from them, but to me, it sounds like I suck and he needs my help. Yeah. So they come to work, they want to make a difference. They all do their job great. They do better than me in all those, from customer service, the shipping, manufacturing, financials. They do better than I could do. But I didn't realize how important visioning was. I also thought it was just not an important role. I thought of it as being a lazy man's role. But Steve, the CFO, had said that to me, who's Mr. Financial, said, you bring something that we don't all have, that you take for granted, that you have a vision. Mm-hmm. And it's true, I have a vision, but I've done a poor job internally sharing it with my team. I don't do what I do for the outside world with talking, though I do the inside world in my people. That like we're working on a strategy plan for next year because I couldn't put a story on paper, and I could be in the room and charm you, but not tell. My guy at Charm can't tell his people what the hell Armen was talking about. So we're putting it all on paper. We went through the stakeholders, and we added the temporary employees to it because we go temp to full as a general laborer. And here's a joke my dad would say to me. He would say, Armen, some of these guys have no clue what you make. They might think it's a kind of a sandwich. I know it's over the top. It's not a sandwich. You can't eat it. But he was making an exaggeration point of these guys are working as general labor in the plant floor. Mm-hmm. They don't know what the heck you make or do or what it's going for. And so we used to do that when we were smaller, because when you have 25 guys, you can touch everybody. But as we bring more people in, they don't know that what's the growth plan. Work at Arto for 3 years and you can be a super, or what they make and where it goes. It's going to someone's mom's house. Take care of it like your mom's house. So those things, the simple stuff of telling internal stories, receives an F on my own grading. With the curve and everything, I received an F.
So how has that changed for you as you have that awareness? Because I was just literally telling someone a couple hours ago that I'm pretty sure my team wakes up every morning a little bit frightened to death that I'm going to say, there's this new thing. It's going to be awesome. Worst case scenario, I've already sold it. We got money coming in. Now we just got to make it happen. And guess what? I promised it was going to happen like 90 days from now. Now, and I think when you say, hey, to the outside world, there's a vision, I feel like you're talking about me. I think we do a reasonably good job of kind of painting that picture for folks. And for some, not all, it's attractive. But internally, I think there's like, oh my God, this guy just keeps on making stuff and commitments and selling stuff. And then we have to figure out how to sprint to make it happen. How have you improved the internal storytelling, or how do you plan to do that?
Plan to, so I could still fail. We're writing down a plan on paper. We have a strategic planner coming in. We started last month. And I have a good, everyone thinks of a strat planner as someone that's going to bring you on paper, do this, guys, and I'll see you in a month. We shopped a couple. I shopped a couple. And this one I call a pill press. She takes all of the ideas from the whole crew. I went down to the GMs I call them GMs, or the leaders in concrete and clay,
yep,
that level customer service, and all of the things what they see how to improve. And they're gonna take all of our ideas, throw them against the wall, edit, prioritize. It's not her ideas. It'll be our ideas. She'll put it into a doc, get the pill press out, smash it, and then give us the pill back. So she's not giving us drugs. We're making our own drugs to take. That's what I'm excited about, because we have it all in us, these stories, ideas. We're all creators at different levels. But I'm excited to have it come from internally, not from a third party that I paid, $2 million for. It's basically coffee and a hotel room. Not a hotel room. That sounds awkward. It's a conference room at a hotel. That's a different podcast.
I'm gonna leave that alone. Yeah, well, and it is helpful to have someone outside the organization who can say, yeah, tell me more about that. And then actually, Armen, quit telling me about that, because this is just distracting, right? And it's helping prioritize and distill from the outside, because obviously there's going to be guys that work with you, Armen, that when you get on a roll, there's insights flying, there's jokes, there's a little bit of craziness. They're going to be like, hey boss, you lost me over there. They're not. They're just going to say, this is what he does. This is how we help grow the business.
People understand that, but they're still frustrated. That's the charm I offer. The people understand who I am, but it's still not fair to them. It's great they like coming to work, that they like that they're making a difference. But that old saying about kindness is telling the truth, and to an employee or to a friend, me not telling them what I want is not kind. Me not giving them a vision of where they're going to go is not kind. And it's frustrating, and I can break people's spirits if I do it long enough and all that jazz. My brother and I are partners. And for a long time, in 2002, my dad had a heart attack, and he came into the business, and we grew together as part of the growth story. From 2008, he was critical in us back end growing the manufacturing part. And in 2020, November 2020, him and I had a falling out. And if I like it, you can leave it in there, the story. But we had a falling out, and we grew up together as latchkey kids, so we were like best buds against the world. And that process of growing in our two silos, and me not telling him the truth about, hey, brother, you need some deodorant because you have BO, that hurt our relationship. And it was a wake-up call for, I'm still learning how to do the honest part. Now my brother and I are best friends again, like we were like little kids. We talk all the things that kids talk about at 40 and at 35. Not really. I'm older than 40. But yeah. So not communicating hurt me already and hurt my brother. Him back at me. We're both leaders. And that was a wake-up call. And even though I got that wake-up call, I'm still forgetting. And this last year, 2021, early 2022, I've learned even more. I mean, I've been revealed to me more how poorly I communicate internally. And so I hit rock bottom. This is AA for me, man. I hit rock bottom. So rock bottom, I'm not on the floor, but rock bottom as a leader, and also too, something else is more therapy, Brad. I've always had a partner, my dad, my brother, and I'm still in freaking partner mode. And I'm asking permission from people to do what I know I should be doing. And I put it into collaborative work. Oh, I work collaborative. I think it might be a fear of jumping off the cliff and saying, I know this is right, prove me wrong, versus I need your approval. It's a little bit different. I know I'm right. Prove me wrong. I don't need your approval, Brad, but just prove me wrong. If you prove me wrong, I'll go and I'll change my course. But I've been holding back on making more errors and failing. We've been really lucky to fail huge, and I don't know. I feel like I'm not living my full leadership role there. That's off my chest. I said so. Now you know.
Well, Armen, when I hear you say that, I think as an audience of one, but I think there's other audience members that are going to be listening that also know exactly what you're talking about and being hard on themselves. And I think in one case, when there's that awareness that they need to be doing a better job and they're not meeting their potential and they can improve. And there's also some folks that are probably just really hard on themselves, ambitious leaders that probably need to just be kinder to themselves. But the leaders that scare the hell out of me are the ones that have no awareness and are thinking, quite frankly, I'm operating at about 98% capacity here. It's all these idiots that I'm working with that keep screwing it up. Those are the people that I'm nervous about. So I think your candor and dealing with yourself, while you might be a little bit hard on yourself, but I think having some compassion, but knowing that, I also think that, hey, we got room to grow. And kind of going back to your comment about the books and being curious about, it's a journey. We're all trying to get better.
Who do you want to share 98%? Anybody you work with? Any of your customers? Sorry, cut it out.
No, it's a good segue. I do want to ask you, we're gonna take a hard right turn here as we sometimes do, Armen. I want to ask you about I don't want to say a contradiction, maybe juxtaposition is a $3 word I could use here. In visiting your plant, I was struck by...
I'm sorry about that.
That's on one hand, seeing what seemed to me like technology from the future that looks like this is how stuff is automated, and it looked amazing. And then I go 20 feet next door and you're like, this is how people did it in Mesopotamia. Like, it is old school craftsmanship. And by the way, on the technology and the craftsmanship, like the old world way, I mean that with the highest amount of appreciation for what you're doing. But to see those side by side, literally room by room, really struck me as, I would think in my simple mindedness as a manager, as a leader, how do these work together? And is there complexity and different ways you manage these different things? Just really kind of blew me away. Maybe you can just give us a little context about that in general.
Context. Basically, the one building you saw is an example of the last buggy whip maker. You know, when the car came on the scene, buggy whips left the planet. But that last dummy, the last 3 or 4 dummies that were making buggy whips still, now their dollar buggy whip is $17 each. So on the part you saw, it was not genius. It was not anything but poverty. And now that part, you know, as the world has become more modern and more automated and more sterile, what was once, hey, pay the bills, now has become luxury. We didn't plan to be a luxury product. It was just by being located in a high cost environment. I mean, we produced product in the USA by hand in the county of Los Angeles. That's not Beijing. Well, maybe Beijing, but that's not low cost. So we make product, we pay our people a fair wage. And so it's not like we plan to make that. Now it's who we are. It's our identity. And that building you're in, loud music, a bunch of guys that need a shower. But if a meteor struck that building and wiped out that building, people would cry for about 3 to 4 years before someone took our place. Because I think per square foot, not by dollars, but by square footage made, and the short runs and long runs, that building is able to build 30 feet for your wife's backsplash. And we also do sidewalks in San Clemente that be historic. That we do restaurants around the country, and we'll do 10 square feet for a walkway, entryway. So some factories, they make on Monday and on Friday, they've been making tile 24 hours a day, the same SKU,
right?
The same color. I'm exaggerating, but you get the point.
I do.
We can do all of it and make it just for that customer. And that's very special. And our customers that we sell to, their customers appreciate I hate the word bespoke, but the customization or made to order nature of the product. That way, a builder in Dallas Fort Worth can make for their customer that really, I went to Europe, I saw something, I can't find it everywhere, make it for me. Or, oh, that's off the shelf for us, and then that's our context of that building you saw. The other building, even though you saw a nice machine that was beautiful, made in Japan, that thing's 30 years old. That's still freaking old technology compared to what's going on. I just came back from Italy. They make tile so fast and so quick. That's still archaic. Just the other building you saw was the valley in Mesopotamia where Adam and Eve walked. I mean, it's really, I don't know. That's where they walked. It's a funny joke.
No. Well, tell me just a little bit about when you talk about craftsmanship. I walked in one room and there was several incredibly talented ladies that were literally dropping in ink or probably paint by hand. And Alex had to drag me out of there because I said, I can just watch these people do this. Give us a little context of what that is when they are literally doing this by hand.
Okay. So that method is called quarto de seca or dry line. This is technical. I don't know if it's going to be any good for you. Maybe personally, need some tile for your house. In any case, that method is called dry line or quarto de seca, and it came from Spain. Quarto de seca, dry rope. It's where they would put a wax relief via rope onto a piece of pottery or tile, and that glaze, you saw them dropping in there. If you left too much glaze over the top of the resist, and too little glaze, that little reservoir you saw would not fill up. And so that's that process there. Ironically, that high labor product that costs more than the concrete tiles you saw being made by hand, that's not unique. The luxury tiles, the hand-painted tile, that's not unique. Every town has a person doing that. It's special. It's hard work. One tile, I think I break even on them. I don't sell them. I don't like the ugly 20-year-old teenage boys that need shays. That's unique. That's what kept us alive. That blue water method idea of being in the moat, whatever, being in the world all by yourself. It's great. When you went to the clay factory, the other building, you kind of felt, I know clay. I've been in a brick factory. Currently, we're readjusting that product line to be more unique, that when someone sees it, they have to buy it. Right now, we make not a commodity, but it's not that unique yet. We made a turn at the very beginning that we shouldn't have taken, and a little bit of degree, go 5 years, it's not where I want to be. We're going to go back to our roots in that department of making rustic tile. The tile we make now is handcrafted in that department, but it's not unique. I want to make something that when your wife sees it and it goes shopping to different stores, they can't switch it, because I won't make everybody happy, but the one that gets happy, they can't go anywhere else. They're stuck with me. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think too often, especially when, and again, the scale you guys are operating compared to a guy like me is huge. But for the ones that are literally doing the same tile for 24 hours a day for 7 days in a week, there's going to be an abundance of that. And I'm saying, I'm not trying to sell to everybody. And we're doing a lot, and we can scale, and we have a lot more we can grow, but I'm not going to please everyone. And quite frankly, I need to be reminded every now and then. Some people say, I hate what they do, but that means you're going to have some people that say, I've looked, I can't find that anywhere. Price sensitivity, not a thing here. I'm in with Armen. What do we do?
You are stuck with me. We're married. I make a joke. We want to be the Nike of tile. I want to be that shoe that people save up for. And if they can't afford it, they feel bad about it. They really want it. They have to have it. And they're not going to get their, I know it sounds selfish and not the proper way, but if you build your home and you have to move on, not use our product, it's not completely your dream anymore. That's awful to say out loud. I never said it before out loud, I think, but I want them to feel like they didn't get their dream house. They didn't put me in the For example, in LA, where we're the strongest, when people sell their homes, they'll mention our name, Arto Backsplash or Arto Driveway or Arto. I'm not insert large name here of manufacturer. Dude, that's special. That's like, that's spectacular.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't plan that. That was accidental.
Well, what they're doing is they're signaling back to you, your storytelling is working, and they're putting that in there for the express reason they're going to make the next buyer pay more because it's there and it's different. That's exactly what you want.
Correct. I put it to my nose. That's probably not going to work on the radio. So radio, you're correct. You're right. You're right.
All right. I'm watching the time here. By the way, you know how to connect with a podcast host who's done multiple episodes on his fascination as a youth, and it continues today with Nike. I'm actually reading a book right now called Emotion by Design by, it's not Marshall. I was going to say Greg Marshall. He's the former chief marketing officer for Nike, about how they think about generating that emotion by design, and obviously that's a little pun there, but how they do it deliberately. So you talking about being the Nike of tile. I like that. I think you should aspire to that. That's good.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. And another thing that we decided, I was doing my homework. I went back to your January 6th stroke of luck, and I didn't know why you did the switch. I just came in after, I've been following forever, but I didn't know why you switched. I missed that episode. We had that choice too, to have two brands for two different customers. And there was two roads, not for the back end, but for the front end of the customer.
Right.
I had two choices, be Ford or be GM. GM has many brands and they're diluted, and Ford is Ford, except for Lincoln, but Ford is Ford. GM is multiple brands.
Yeah.
So we went with the Ford model because it was one story to tell to the consumer. I mean, you're right about the back end part, about to everything you said in your story. But a lot of times, I have a question for you. Do you know everything and then you live it and you go, oh, that's that book 3 books ago? Why does it take me a hit in the head to know that, with a baseball bat, to know that I should have done this three months ago? Why does it take a life experience to wake you up?
It's a good question. No, my thought is, and why even reread I don't say old, books that I previously read. And generally it's kind of 3 or 4 years later. I just keep coming back to, you never step in the same stream twice, because the stream has changed and I've changed. And I just know that there's a lot of stuff going on, got a lot of ideas. Some of them are probably pretty crappy, and there's lots of new experiences. And I'm just trying to read stuff. And I'm like, if you put enough around me, I'll stumble into something. I'm like, this is the time I need this, or I'm about to do something stupid, or I just did something stupid. I read something about this, and I just think there's too much going on. There's too many inputs there to think that we can just organize this all myself, at least for me. So I don't know, but I do.
So you're saying that you need, without the life happening to you, the reading doesn't really help.
Yeah, exactly. And like, dude, stuff happens all the time, and you're like, okay. And I just think so many people have lived. And I think part of why I love doing the podcast and talking to people like you, so many people have lived these very rich lives, and they have done things that have either led to success or sadness or failure or something in between. And many of these people work their asses off writing a book to say, I'm going to give you the best of what I've got. I'm like, it'd be dumb of me not to at least be curious and to say, maybe can I try to avoid making similar mistakes or making those again? That's kind of my approach to it.
Gotcha.
So let me ask you, final question here. I'm watching the time and appreciate you making time for this. You mentioned books in your leadership journey, or maybe it's on management. Does one book stand out in your mind that you'd say, hey, this book, I read this book at the right time, or this was influential, or maybe it's a book I read recently that really helped you become a better leader or a more aware leader?
Yeah, it's a book I read every 2 or 3 years. And to be honest, it's an audiobook because I love Jim Collins in my ear. He's dramatic. I seem very flat against him when I talk. It's not the book you think. It's a book called How the Mighty Fall. It's a book about well-known companies that were successful and the causes of their demise. For me, it's a wake-up call when I do. In fact, I probably read it again or listen to it again, of having a... and the preface is pretty dramatic. You should read it out loud, the preface of that book. it's an incredible part of the story. It gets you started. Is you have things at the peak of your game. There are things inside of you that are currently working against you that bring you down, and it's your job, my job, our team's job to diagnose what those things are in us as an organization and as people. It's to say what is it hubris? Is it not changing? Is it mostly it was about not changing? You have you're a winning team. Everything you win 3 years in a row, and you don't change your style. You're going to get slaughtered. So it's about waking up. The formula's working, guys. In any case, I love that book. It's dramatic. It's a short listen. I think it's like a 6-hour airplane flight.
Got it. Jim Collins, How the Mighty Fall. I do believe I've read that. I kind of went through, I think maybe I didn't. I went through a cynical Jim Collins phase where I'm like, he's just writing a book that basically is the answer about, hey, if the good to great companies were so great, why did all these things fall? And then he writes a follow book that's How the Mighty Fall. And you're kind of like, guy's kind of a genius as well. So I think that might have been my cynical stage, but he's a really talented guy and a great storyteller as well.
Well, that Stockdale principle, I tell it to my kids all the time.
Yeah.
And in fact, a pivotal part in our Instagram story was March 2020. Something happened, and I remember that book, and I told my audience, guys, don't put an imaginary timeline to the end of this. This was our first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I was in LA, right? And it kept going and going until last week. But it was just, hey, don't do that, because you're going to get yourself to this place and it's not going to change, and you haven't changed. So how can you change your circumstances while you're in the moment and not depending on a timeline that you have no control over to affect your happiness? And I saw many people in my, not 3 rings, in my inner circle get destroyed over timelines. And that whole year it was a hard year for a lot of people. And that Stockdale principle thing, I used it for myself, and I just lived in the moment and not, Thursday, back to normal. Do you listen to books or just read them?
So I go print is my go-to. However, if it's very good or it's especially poignant, I will then get it on Audible. And while I will basically read and listen to it at the same time and kind of go back and forth. I'm a big note taker, a highlighter, because I can't remember this stuff. So I got to make notes on it. So I'll listen to both if I do, but I'm generally print first.
Just buy the audiobook for the Stockdale principle, and just for the book, How the Mighty Fall. You're around the campfire with the guy. He's telling you stories about giants collapsing.
Yep.
He's a great storyteller. Great story. Any case, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great place to end, Armen, for 2 reasons. Is number one, you've been very gracious with your time, but also for everyone listening to this, more than likely the last decade plus have been probably a land of abundance, and especially over the last couple of years in our industry, and having a little bit of sense of healthy paranoia and the fact of it's possible, it's more than likely that over the next several years, a lot of these companies that have been right up to today looking at nothing but success are also going to be part of that, How the Mighty Fall story that we're going to be telling 5 years from now. That's going to happen.
I have one for you. Healthy paranoia. That's a Jim Collins quote of Microsoft, and it's productive paranoia. And when I first heard productive paranoia, I said, that's what I have. Productive paranoia. I'm not crazy. I'm paranoid, but I'm being productive about it.
Yeah, it's funny.
So good, healthy paranoid. You brought that back. You look at you circling.
Bringing it back. Bringing it back. That's what we do. Yeah. We're telling stories. Hey, I got to let you go. I appreciate you making time. This was a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see you and your leadership and your team at Arto on where you go in the future. And I appreciate you making time for me.
Cheers. Do I say something now like funny, or do I just say that's it?
No, I think that's exactly what you should say. What you just said is exactly what you should say.
Spectacular. Have a great one.
All right then, friends, how did that go? I didn't oversell it, right? If you heard my introduction, it was kind of all over the place, and there's a lot of excitement because I really enjoyed my conversation with Armen, and I look forward to talking to him again and sometime having a beer or something with him whenever I find myself, as I never do in the great state of South Dakota. But anyway, I hope you found that helpful. And if you did, please do two things for us. Number one, please share this link to the podcast, or we also put out the video of my conversation with Armen on our YouTube channel. You can just Google YouTube, Bradley Hartman and Co., and you will see that video there of him and I having a good old time and talking it up. The second thing is, if you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed the show, please take just 7 seconds and give us a quick review. Those mean more to us than you know. And of course, if you have suggestions to make this better, more topics, shorter, longer, different guests, tell us what you're looking for. My goal here is to make this the best podcast you listen to. I'm going to bust my ass to do whatever I can to make that happen. So do not hesitate to reach out to us. In fact, you can reach out directly to me at bradley@bradleyhartmanandco.com. Big thank you to our presenting sponsor, Capital One Trade Credit. If you're looking for a customized platform and a team to help you implement it to make it easier for your customers to buy from you, my friend, will absolutely be interested in Capital One Trade Credit. Go on, check it out, see if it's a fit for you. That's all we've got. Appreciate you listening. Want you to have a great week. We're going to close out like we always do with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.